am a survivor of domestic violence and multiple other types of abuse and violence against humans. And let me tell you what one of the most frustrating things for me as someone who is surviving decades of trauma to hear from other people. You tell me you don't understand trauma without telling me you don't understand trauma. I'll go first. When I tell them that there are parts of my personality and my behavior that were severely impacted while I was with that person or while I was in that situation, a lot of times they say, more often than I can count, they say, but you weren't with them all the time. Of course I wasn't with them all the time. And then they're like, oh, so like when you weren't around them, you didn't have to be that. Like, do you think that the majority of the things that were impacted were even conscious choices while I was in survival mode? Because they weren't. Like, I run into new things every week at this point, sometimes every day, of recognizing things that were impacted about myself, my personality, my beliefs, my behaviors, the way I dressed, the way I wore my hair, the way I laughed. Like, any facet of yourself and your identity that you can think of can be triggered or changed or repressed because of trauma. It can be deeply, deeply ingrained in your brain that it is not safe to be who you are. And that was true for me. And so it is exhausting to maintain that. And because it is exhausting to maintain that, what do you think would be even more exhausting? How about having to try and be yourself when you were not in those situations, particularly for those of us who have abuse and violence and trauma or neglect, neglect of any form. Like, if you didn't have your parents in your life because they worked so much, but they were generally good parents, like, that can still cause trauma. You know, trauma is the impact, not the event. And so if the impact was something that didn't happen for you, that's trauma too. And so if you have that childhood ongoing chronic trauma, essentially, then your personality was shifting when your brain was still developing. So like, you didn't have a full sense of self at that point. Your brain, in some studies, it shows that it is developing up until age 28. 28, can you believe that? And so I don't know about you, but I went through a lot of formative shit before I turned 28. A lot. And so I had no idea who I was. All I knew was that in order to survive, I had to fawn. That's one of those fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, your stress, your response system. I fawned. I became whatever I needed to be in order to keep that person happy. And that was my only focus. And it would have been exhausting trying to be anything other than that when I wasn't with them. So to then think that someone can just bounce back after any period of time or any experience of not being safe to be themselves is frankly ignorant. And I hope if you've ever said this to someone that you recognize now how limited of a perspective that you might have. And I don't say that from a place of you feeling any type of shame for that. We don't know what we don't know, right? And so if you have the opportunity to go tell a person who you know has survived trauma that the impact of what they went through cannot be recognized or quantified in any way, and you will never assume to understand the full impact or that they're ever fully healed. You might have done the work to turn the wound into a scar, and now you're able to talk about it from a place of not feeling triggered, but that doesn't mean that you never think about it again, that you never realize different ways that it impacted you, that anytime you go through another evolution in life, as is prone to happen when we go through hardship, we learn about ourselves and our beliefs and what we want in the world, what we value. The next time that you go through it, you might revisit some of those things. You might be re-triggered from something you thought you healed. And yet the work continues. So please don't point out that I wasn't around my partner, or I wasn't around my caregiver, or I wasn't around the abusers throughout my life all of the time. Therefore, I should be over it.